Hey guys, how's it going, Dudey? I'm back with another video. Today's video, it was one of the hardest things I've ever had to research. So make of that what you will. So, I mean, the title says it all. The Pit of Despair Experiment. This experiment was undertaken by Harry Harlow. Harry Harlow was born in 1905 in Fairfield, Iowa, and it has to be said that his upbringing probably wasn't the happiest. His mother wasn't exactly the most loving, caring woman in the world, and I feel like in hindsight of the research that I've done, this is what kind of set Harry on the path to do the things that he did. Growing up, Harry apparently was quite an anxious child, very shy, didn't have any friends, he was depressed, but he did go on to university to get a PhD in psychology. This led him to get a job as a professor at a university in Wisconsin. Now, Harry was inspired, I think, by his upbringing to discover how important having a good parent really is and the effects that that would have on a child. So he asked for some lab space from the university, which was declined. So he went to a local factory down the road to begin his experiments on infant monkeys. Now, before I go on to say the experiments that Harry did, it's important to lay the foundation of the time period that they were in. Around this time, psychology believed that basically good parenting, a loving family, was pretty much a waste of time, as the only benefit a parent has on a child is the fact that they can nourish the child, they can clothe the child, they can essentially keep the child alive. That is the psychological benefit to a parent. Being a nice, loving, caring parent apparently at the time was theorized to not have any effect on the child whatsoever. Now, obviously, Harry had, by all accounts, a shit mum, and because of that, he was very stressed, anxious, and depressed growing up. So he wanted to see if there was a link there. However, as much as it sounds like he's doing a great thing, the way that he went about it was absolutely abhorrent. So buckle up, guys, because here comes the experiments. Okay, so in his laboratory space in this factory, he bred primates, and what he did was he separated the baby monkeys from their parents and took notes as to the effects that this would have on those infant monkeys. Now, he noted that there seemed to be quite a large psychological effect on their development, on their outlook, and on their behavior when separated from their mother. I mean, obviously, looking back at this in 2021, it was kind of like, well, no fucking shit, but we'll give them the benefit of the doubt for the time period that they were in. Just for a second, going back to the thoughts at the time about, you know, it not garnering any kind of positive, having a loving family, they actually thought it was a negative because it would essentially make the children softer and soften their resolve growing into adulthood. But anyway, in order to properly test this theory, you couldn't just separate the monkeys from their mothers. No, he had to go one step further. So what he did was he separated the monkeys from the mother and he placed the monkeys in a cage. Now, he created two surrogate mothers, one that was made of wood, sponge, rubber, a nice light cloth-like exterior, a nice happy face. Now, the idea of this mother would be that it would represent exactly that, the comfort, you know, the softness, the warmth, and the security of a mother figure that would be there by all accounts for 24 hours of the day, would never strike out at the monkey. It would be that comfort and security that the infant needed. Now, there was also another surrogate mother that was, to be honest, quite scary looking. It was just essentially the bare bones, the wiring, quite a blocky, scary face. But this mother provided milk. It provided that sustenance, that nourishment that at the time the theory was, you know, oh well, this mother is giving the monkey nourishment, so therefore this monkey will attach itself to that one because it's getting food from that mother. Well, of course, this didn't happen. The monkey did go for milk to stay alive, and then instantly would go and run to the comfort of the comforting mother model. Now, obviously, as horrific as these tests were and unfair on these baby monkeys, ultimately, if we're going to play devil's advocate for just a moment, it was changing the thought process of the psychologists at the time. They think, well, hang on a minute, actually, these monkeys are going for the comforting figure over the milk, sustenance, nourishment giving figure. Interesting. However, of course, the psychological damage done to these monkeys, being torn away from their parents from such a young age, being put into a cage, isolated for 6 months at a time, the damage was basically irreparable. It wasn't just the two surrogate parents in the cage. Sometimes there was Harry's scary robot, which would scare the infant so badly that it would sprint across the cage, and the scientists would then look and see where the monkey would go. Would it go to the sustenance, the nourishment mother, or would it go to the comforting mother? And of course, no brainer, every single time it would sprint and cower and huddle and cuddle and hold on to the comforting mother, in the monkey's eyes, for dear life. Now, once the monkeys were returned to environments, admittedly still within a lab with other monkeys, they would not interact with the other monkeys. They would be a shell of their former selves. They would huddle, they would cower, they would be stressed and anxious, and they would not want to socialize with the other monkeys or explore their surroundings at all. They would often find corners, huddle in them, and stay there, secluded and alone. The psychological damage of these tests on these monkeys were truly horrific. Now, in order for you to get a gist of the man Harry Harlow was, I've got a quote for you which sums him up perfectly. It says, "The only thing I care about is whether a monkey will turn a profit I can publish. I don't have any love for them, and I never have. I don't really like animals. I despise cats. I hate dogs. How could you like monkeys?" Well, Harry, here's a couple of examples for you, you absolute prick. So he has proved the thesis wrong. Clearly, children want that comforting figure, and the damage that is done to them without it is quite clear to be seen. So surely you just close the book there, let the monkeys go, publish your work, and let the monkeys live happily ever after, right? Wrong. Of course, the next port of call would be to see the effects of an abusive mother on an infant child, and so Harry created the Iron Maiden. Now imagine the two mothers that he had created before, the wired framed one that gave them milk and then the comforting mother. Well, he combined the two, so it would be a comfort to them, it would provide the milk, but it would also attack them. It would spray them with cold air with such force it would actually propel the monkey across the cage, slamming them against the cage's walls. It would stab them with metal spikes and also douse them in freezing cold water. Despite all of the abuse that this new mother figure gave the monkeys, they still clung to them for comfort, proving just how important comfort really is for a child. So he ramped it up, didn't he, to the Iron Maiden. I'm sure you're thinking, like I was thinking when I was researching this project, surely it cannot get any worse than this. Well, as you've seen by the title of this video, we haven't actually got to the air quotes pit of despair yet, so let's get on with that part, shall we? Harry's wife died of cancer in 1971, and this put Harry into his own pit of despair, his own mental prison in which he had the deepest of depressions. He was actually admitted to a clinic type place where he underwent radio shock therapy in an attempt to cure his depression. After all of this, he returned to his research lab where fellow researchers admitted that he never was quite the same and lacked the sense of humour that this man apparently had beforehand. Now, just quickly, I want to interject. I get the impression that this man's work was based entirely of his own experiences in life. He had the poor mother who showed him no comfort, no love, and so he grew up to test the effects of that on monkeys. Well, then his wife dies and he goes into a pit of depression. So he then decides to basically test the effects of the environment, etc., on monkeys. And in order to do this, he would have to cause depression within the monkeys to see the effects that depression would have on said monkeys. So, the Pit of Despair, as you can see here, this was the Pit of Despair, a cone-like prison cell for the monkeys to inhabit. But the thing was, in order to make depressed monkeys, you have to allow them to be happy first. You have to take something away from them. So rather than separating the monkeys at birth from their parents, what Harry did was he allowed the monkeys to stay with the mother for 3 months to 12 months and then tear away the baby from the parent. He would then put both the adults and the children into separate cages, the Pits of Despair that I showed you before. Now, Harry basically created these Pits of Despair from images in his own head. He essentially brought forward into physical manifestation his idea of depression, his idea of being locked in your own head, the narrowing walls, like the world closing in on you, that kind of thing. So these Pits of Despair was Harry Harlow's physical manifestation of depression itself, and he left the monkeys in there. They had no interaction other than to be fed and watered as minimally as required, and after days of trying to escape, clawing at the walls, every single monkey resided to their fate. They huddled into the corner of their prison cells, of their cages, of their pits of despair, and accepted their new reality. Some were left in there for 3 months, some were left in there for 12 months. The lasting effects of how long you were in there for differed. For example, those that came out 3 months later would definitely be affected. They'd be stressed, they'd be anxious, but eventually they would get back to some form of regularity. However, after 6 months to a year in the Pits of Despair, the monkeys simply never recovered. Some monkeys refused to eat, refused to even move, and simply stayed in that position until they starved to death. However, there was one more sickening card up Harry Harlow's sleeve, and all of this has been deeply upsetting, researching this, deeply disturbing, and this next bit I was umming and ahhing whether to actually include in this video. So I want you all to be very aware that this next bit, even though the whole video so far I think personally has been incredibly upsetting and disturbing, I want you to know that this next bit really got to me. It may not affect you, but if it does, I apologise, you may want to skip forward. I will do this. If you're going to skip, wait till you scroll through till you see me doing this, and then you know it's safe to come back. So he had one last sick trick up his sleeve. He wanted to see how the Pit of Despair would affect being a mother, how depression would affect being a mother. Now, obviously, the behaviour of these female monkeys when they came out of the Pits of Despair, you know, some of them didn't even want to eat, let alone mate. They didn't want to socialise, let alone mate. So the female monkeys were tied down into a position where male monkeys were able to rape them, to impregnate them, and give birth to other monkeys. And Harry Harlow said that not even the most twisted and sadistic mother figures they could have created, not the most evil invention of a mother figure they could have created, it would have paled in comparison to how evil and sadistic these mother monkeys were after going through the Pits of Despair. So basically what Harry put those monkeys through turned those female monkeys into sadistic parents, and they would bite off they would attack their own children, pin them down, eat them alive. It was truly horrific, absolutely horrific. And yeah, so there we go, we're back. Hello Hello everyone who just wanted to skip that. Harry died in 1981. It was directly linked to his Parkinson's disease. There are a few things that came out of this. I mean, a greater understanding of human psychology, the importance of a healthy, happy, loving, comforting upbringing. You know, the deep effects that a negative upbringing can have on a child. But also, when news got out of the tests that were being done on these monkeys, it started a dialogue, and the code of ethics was actually changed to improve the parameters when dealing with animals in laboratories. I mean, animals shouldn't be tested on, full stop. Neither should humans, obviously. And I understand that, you know, it's a massive moral dilemma, isn't it? Because it's like, well, you know, look at the benefits that have come from it, etc. But it's just, this was really hard to research. This was really hard to get through. But I do, you know, the thing with all these horrible things, you know, from history, I do think that it is important that they're not forgotten, because I think it's a misjustice to the victims. But yeah, that's Harry Harlow and the Pits of Despair experiment. What do you guys think? I know it's not a happy one today, guys. I do apologise, but yeah, I do cover a lot of experiments on this channel, a lot of historic things, you know, true crime as well, conspiracies, ghost hunting, all that good stuff. If that's the sort of content that you would like to watch, you think you'd enjoy, I'm very close to 100,000 subscribers, so if you'd like to subscribe, that would be amazing. If you want to support me as a creator, it's all down below in the description. But yeah, guys, let me know what you think about this one. I know it's a tough one, but thank you for getting through it with me, and I'll see you very soon. Sweet one, geese.